Welcome to the NEREJ NYREJ podcast. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan. My guest today is Tom Cafarella of Cameron Real Estate Group, a real estate agent who has fixed and flipped over 1,000 homes, own a few hundred rental units, and has a real estate brokerage of 350 agents. Hi, Tom. How are you?
What's going on, Rick? Thanks for having me.
Hey, you were on my radio show about 10 years ago, and you were just beginning this whole journey that you were on, and now you've been so successful at it. So tell us a little bit about your 10-year journey.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for having me back. And like we were talking about before we jumped on, I can't believe it's been, 10 years. I just turned 40 in July. And when you had me on, going back 10 years, that was probably really, it wasn't the beginning of our business, but it was the beginning phase of kind of us starting to have, success. And, my whole model and how I started having success going back 10 years is that I started out as a real estate agent who always wanted to invest in real estate. And, I would go out, I would sell houses, and I always had, up and down income, which people refer to as the real estate roller coaster. I knew I wanted to invest to get off that real estate roller coaster, but it wasn't until I did my first deal, my first investing deal in 2010. I was on a listing appointment in Somerville, and I walked into the property. The seller, house needed a ton of work, and she just kept saying to me that she did not want to list the property. And I kept trying because that was the only way I knew how to make money at the time. And finally, she just told me that the only way she would sell is if I could find her an investor to pay her $300,000 for her two-family in Teal Square in Somerville. And that's when the light bulb went off for me that, I shouldn't just be an agent, but I should also be an investor. And I knew $300,000 was a good deal. And I decided to buy the property myself, flip the property. And, the long story short of it is that we made over six figures on that deal. And that ended up changing the course of my entire business, the trajectory of my business, the trajectory of my income, where I didn't just look at myself as a real estate agent anymore, but, as my, shirt says, like I'm an agent investor now. And, so fast forward kind of past 2010, by the time, me and you kind of, got hooked up with each other, we were probably fixing and flipping 30 or 40 homes a year. We had just started our real estate brokerage. And one of the reasons why we've been able to grow the real estate brokerage, to a pretty sizable number with, somewhere near 350 agents is because we teach and train on the principles that I'm talking about, the agent investor principles, where we teach real estate agents to take advantage of the opportunities that are right in front of them on a day-to-day basis, because they have the training, they have the tools to be able to do this, but a lot of them don't know how to take advantage. And, fast forward 10 years since we talked, and I can't believe it's 10 years again, we fixed and flipped over 1,000 homes, have a few hundred unit rental property portfolio, have grown the brokerage up to 300 plus agents, and are in the process of building apartments right now for passive income.
So you're trying to teach a real estate broker how they can turn their regular real estate brokerage or brokerage job or agent or whatever you want to call them, how you can turn them into have a passive income because of the, like you say, roller coaster of income that the real estate agents usually go through, due to downturns or recessions, whatever the cases may be. And you're training them so now they'll know what to look for a home that they'll be able to turn into a rental property.
Yeah, rentals and flips. So I mean, I look at it kind of in two ways. The first is that agents, because they're going on listing appointments, because they're networking with other agents, they come across investment opportunities all the time. And some of those investment opportunities can be fix and flip deals. And, the average fix and flip profit in Massachusetts is, $50,000 to $80,000. And those are big hits of income that, again, can get somebody ahead. And then we also look at it like they also come across, long-term buy and hold passive income properties. And there was a stat at the end of this year that showed that 30% of all real estate agents are thinking about giving up their license. And they're thinking about giving up their license because of the fact that things are slowing down. There's less transactions, the business is getting harder. And a lot of them probably don't really want to quit being a real estate agent, but they may have to because the income isn't coming in. And our whole philosophy is if you can do one or two fix and flips a year, or even just one and make the $50,000, $60,000, or if you can buy one or two or three rental properties and get $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month in passive income, they can stay as agents. They can thrive as agents, and they don't have to worry every single month whether or not they made a commission or not, whether or not that listing is going to sell.
So is the flipping market slowing down? Because the whole market is starting to slow down.
The whole market's slowing down, including flipping. And really it's crazy because I don't think there's, at least since I've been in business, interest rates have never been more important. And obviously, inflation has been really high. So the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, which caused mortgage rates to go up. So you went from an environment in the beginning of 2022 where rates were in the threes to the fall where they were actually in the sevens. So what's happening is buyers that used to be able to afford a $450,000 house, maybe they can only afford a $400,000 house. And so that pressure that's caused by higher rates is causing less transactions to happen, because you have a dynamic where a lot of sellers that are thinking about selling have a 3% interest rate. So if they have to buy something else, they need to get top dollar because they're going to go into a 5 or a 6 or a 7% interest rate. So sellers aren't super motivated to sell. Then on the other hand, you have buyers that can't afford the same purchase prices they could 6 to 8 or 10 months ago. So you have two categories of people, buyers and sellers, that are really not bending at all. Like neither side is super motivated. So it's causing less transactions and it's putting downward pressure on pricing, which is shrinking margins on the flipping business.
No, real estate is kind of a crazy business because the rental properties, rentals are still getting good money for that. So if you did purchase a property at a reasonable price, which I think the prices are stabilizing somewhat in residential, if you did purchase that, you could get a pretty good rental dollar for it.
Well, I mean, think about this, right? Like if a buyer, got quoted, that they could buy a $500,000 house with a 3% mortgage rate, then all of a sudden rates go to sixes and they decide, well, geez, I can't afford the house that I'm going to buy, that I want to buy now. Now they become renters. And in fact, one of the great things that's not really a positive for the overall market, but there's a lot of people who have to rent right now because they can't afford to buy. So some of those renters were really qualified buyers 6 months ago, and now they're pushing into the rental market. So, there's probably never been a better time to be a landlord in the greater Boston or New England area than right now, because you have a ton of highly qualified people that are thinking in their head, like a lot of buyers are thinking in their head, hey, let me wait because things are going to get better. Either rates are going to get better or prices are going to get better.
Well, I know a lot of people that have sold their homes probably a year ago. They made pretty good money on it, and they turned to renting instead of purchasing another home because they want to wait to see what the market's going to do, if it's going to come down even more.
Right. Which is, again, that's going to put more upward pressure on rental prices. And I've seen a lot of people make that move, and also seen people make the move where they sell here, and because of the work from home situation, move like further out, maybe they don't have to be necessarily in Boston. So maybe they go to Worcester County or, somewhere near Springfield, or they move to New Hampshire or Vermont or Maine or Rhode Island or someplace like that. In fact, my parents just sold their 2-family in Revere and moved to Rhode Island. And, they had a $300,000 mortgage on their house in Revere. Now they have nothing in Rhode Island because they were able to take that equity and cash out.
Right. And that was commonplace. I think it changed a little with how quickly the cost of housing went up, because that went up pretty fast. And then you also had the interest rate was low. It was like a perfect combination, but now it's starting to explode somewhat.
Yeah.
Because the cost of the housing is up there, and now the interest rate is up there. So the two things. So the rental, I think, makes more sense in some cases.
Well, either way, I mean, our philosophy really is like, if you're a real estate agent and you're, commission only income, and this doesn't just apply to real estate agents, but it can apply to anybody, anybody that's a full-time employee that is worried about getting laid off, or anything can happen. I mean, there's uncertainty with anybody's primary source of income, even if you're an employee, but really more specifically if you're an agent. And if you have a lot of degree of uncertainty, you might as well take advantage, in my opinion, of what investing offers. Because again, if you can get $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8,000 of passive income, and if you're an agent, if you can take advantage of the fix and flip opportunities that kind of just get put in your lap, now all of a sudden, like, you don't have to leave the industry. Now all of a sudden, you don't have to look every single second to see where mortgage rates are going, or you don't have to worry about whether or not the listing that you just took is going to expire. It just gives you more peace of mind. And I know for me, like, years before we talked, that was my biggest problem in 08, 9, 2010, when I was just an agent. Like, I would have a month where I would make $10,000 or $15,000. Then the next month, nothing. The next month, nothing. The next month, nothing. And then you're getting to that fourth month being like, I don't even know if I can stay in this industry anymore. And that's really what we're, preaching more than anything else, is to build up, your net worth, to build up passive income, so that you're not necessarily reliant on whatever primary source of income you have.
Well, as a real estate broker, I think you need to have a passive income because of the roller coaster you are on. I don't know if it was that case many, many years ago, because I think real estate brokers would know how to conserve their income. They could put it, they may have one great month, and then they average it out through the whole year. So I know a lot of older real estate brokers that have been in the business for many, many years, but that's how they manage their money differently than how most people manage their money today.
Well, you're making a good point, and the savings rate is a lot lower now. And a lot of times, if you're newer, you don't even necessarily know that you should be managing your money that way. But I think no matter what, even if you're decently good at money management and all that stuff, I also look at it from the real estate agent perspective of, like, if you're a real estate agent, you're going to have to do a lot of night showings, a lot of weekend showings. The open houses are on the weekend. You always have to, drop everything you're doing. If you're planning on doing something on a Saturday morning and your client texts you on a Friday afternoon, like, hey, I want to go out and look at some houses tomorrow, you have to jump and go. And not that, like, you signed up for that if you're a real estate agent, but there are cases where it's like, maybe you don't need to take that client that, is a jerk to you, or that you hate to work with, or whatever. And then when you have that passive income, or you have some fix and flip income, you're more inclined to make the right decisions for yourself and your family, rather than being like, oh man, somebody wants to see a property 90 minutes away. I better jump, because if I don't, I might not get a commission check next month.
So, there's a lot of things happening now. The real estate, residential homes, that's starting to slow down. The sales are starting to slow down because sellers are kind of pulling back somewhat. Mm-hmm. Buyers are kind of waiting to see what happens with interest rates. So you have a little bit of a slowdown on that end. Flipping, is inventory still available for flipping homes?
It's crazy because like if you were to ask me that same question 2 years ago, I would have said it's never been harder to find houses to fix and flip, but it's even harder today. And the reason again for that, we go on appointments every single week. So our team goes on about 100 face-to-face seller appointments a week from the marketing that we do. We do mailers and pay-per-click and Facebook ads and TV to get appointments to meet with sellers. And we've never been told by so many sellers on the initial meeting, hey, I'm definitely selling, like I'm ready to go. And then a week later that they decide that they're not going to sell because they've really looked into the finances of it, and they start to look at the next home that they're going to buy. Like we've had people that have agreed to sell to us, and then they go out, they start looking for their next home, and they were planning on downsizing, and they come back to us and they say, oh, I'm really, really sorry. I thought by going down to a one level ranch, I'd be saving money, but I'm actually going to be paying more money. Is there any way we can get out of this agreement? So it's really challenging. And especially just besides the interest rates, there's just such uncertainty where things are going to go. Like, again, a year ago today, I think most people thought they knew what was going to happen in 2022. And I think if you ask 100 people right now, hey, what's going to happen in 2023? You're going to get a lot of people that are like, I have no freaking idea, because there are so many possibilities as to where things could head over the next 12 months.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people, when they're in that hot market, they think, oh, this is never going to end. And then
Yep.
there's the others that will think, well, I have to prepare because I know this is going to end soon, especially if they live through the cycle once or twice, you know.
Yeah, and I started in that down cycle. I got my real estate license in 2005, and the market was super hot then. And then by 2007, 2008, all of a sudden things have changed. The hard part is, like you said, you're in the midst of the hot market. It's like the market was hot for so long. I mean, there were periods, no exaggeration, where I thought in 2017 that the market was going to, fold, and it never did. And then 2018, and then all of a sudden 2020 COVID hits, and I'm like, okay, here it is. This is definitely when the real estate market's going to go down. And it's like, no matter how smart you think you are or how much research you do, like you don't know. And that's the part, the older I get, the more I learn, like, hey, I'm willing to go out and make a prediction, but I also know that, half the time that I make a prediction, a year later, I'm going to look like a complete fool.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it quite a bit in the residential real estate market, the brokers that really don't know about the ups and downs of the industry. So they're not prepared for the downturns. But, in commercial real estate, which is what we sort of specialize in, the owners of property sort of have learned how to manage that ups and downs, which has been a pretty good trick for them. But I think most of them have it down pat. It might be the newcomers that think, oh, well, it's never going to end. It's always going to be a hot market. They figured it out, so we'll never have a downturn again. That doesn't happen. But you live and learn.
Yeah, I think on average, I mean, this is going to be a generalization, but I think on average, people that are in commercial, maybe they do a little bit of homework, maybe they study a little bit more. Residential has a big variety of type of people that are in it, all the way from people that are just completely part-time to people that are very serious. I mean, especially on the residential side, 20% of all real estate agents make 80% of the income. And then you have a lot of other people that do all different things. They're part-time, or maybe they're just kind of doing it for fun or whatever. But yeah, I think commercial, it's a different base kind of people that enter into commercial. And that's one thing we're doing right now is we're moving towards commercial. We've sold off, a lot of our smaller multifamily assets, and we're building, 50 to 100 unit apartment buildings because of, again, the more sophisticated nature of the beast, and just more predictability really around the assets than, say like a two family, a three family, a four family, where it really is like very hard to predict where things are going to go.
Right. So where do you think things are going to go? Now, I mean, I know you're teaching people about this. You
Yep.
have this, uh, is it a class or a webinar or something that you put out on agent investors to teach them about the direction they should go so they get into a passive income?
So I'm going to answer that in two ways. The first thing, I think, no matter what you want to do to be successful in life, you need to get educated. There's a saying in real estate, the more you learn, the more you earn. If you want to be a great agent, if you want to be a great investor, if you want to be great at commercial, you want to learn. You want to get around other people that are doing it. And that's what the agent investor brand does. So I do weekly, free training in our Facebook group that people can access at www.agentinvestor.com. And once a week, I do free training, but I also answer questions for people in the group. In terms of where I think, things are going to go, I first think that you need to have a plan regardless of where things are going to go. And that goes back to like why I think people need passive income and agents need to take advantage of those fix and flips that come across their plate. Because if let's just say theoretically that somebody has passive income of $20,000 a month coming in from ownership of assets, they're not as concerned. Like, a lot of times we're talking about where things are going to go in 2023, because if things go a certain way, it's going to be really negative for us. But if you have passive income coming in, if you know how to invest in other ways, you're not quite as concerned. Now, let me answer the actual question, which is, where do I think things are going to go? I think in 2023, we are going to still have that stalemate between buyers and sellers. Sellers don't want to sell and give up their 3% interest rate. They're under no duress to sell. Most of them have equity. And you have buyers who are having a tough time affording, properties at 6% interest rates. So what I think that's going to lead to in 2023 across the board, residential and commercial, is that there are going to be fewer transactions. I wouldn't be surprised if transactions in Greater Boston are down 20% year over year. So if there's typically, I know this is going to be the wrong number, but if there are typically 1 million sales, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be 800,000 in 2023. In addition to that, I think that we're going to still see downward pricing pressure on properties in Greater Boston. I think in a best case scenario, I look at things in terms of probability. I think there's maybe a 10% chance that we'll see 5% or better appreciation. I think there's a 70% chance that we'll see between plus or minus 5% appreciation, and then maybe a 20% chance that we'll see, declines of more than 5%. And that's how I analyze things, just in terms of like, what are the odds that this outcome is going to happen? And I think the most likely outcome is between plus or minus 5% on, appreciation or loss of value.
Well, it's smart to look at everything realistically, and which is what you're talking about. And I, I like the idea of this agent investor and educating some of these people that are in the industry that are just real estate brokers, because diversifying your portfolio is probably a good thing if you're in this industry, and you are trying to train them to do so. So I think that's important. Now, the only thing I can see is that a lot of them do have fears of real estate rental properties because of tenants. Tenants can be very difficult. And over the years, it has become even more and more difficult, as far as evictions and them trashing the property and things of that nature. So do you teach them how to do that, or you give them the ability to work with companies that do handle things like that, like property management companies or different companies that would work with rental properties?
So I think with any sort of investment, there's never no risk. So we live in an area where the landlord tenant laws favor tenants in general. There are always going to be nightmare stories about tenants. And some of it isn't avoidable. And if you do this for long enough, you're going to have a nightmare story yourself. But what we teach people to do is follow best practices. And when you follow best practices, the odds kind of get in your favor. So if put the right people in your properties, if you're managing it the right way, if you're going through all of the procedures that are best practices, you're just stacking the odds, in your favor. And I'll say this related to that question, like if anybody who's listening to this thinks about somebody that they know who bought a bunch of rental real estate, I can almost guarantee that that person has become a millionaire over the course of time and probably hasn't had a lot of like huge negative repercussions from tenants other than just having these kind of like nightmare stories. But the first step to all of this stuff, rather than just going out and running out and buying a property or flipping a property, is to get educated. And that's what we do with Agent Investor. And again, I would encourage people to go to www.agentinvestor.com, join the free Facebook group, start plugging in every week, start asking questions. And that's the first step, because there's not even fears of tenants is just one type of fear. There's also fear of like, I don't know how to renovate houses, or I don't have money, or I could go kind of up and down and list 10 or 15 reasons why an agent or anybody would say, hey, I can't invest in real estate. There's an answer to all of those questions, but it starts first with saying, hey, I know, I mean, you made the best point, Rick, which is like, I need to diversify my income. So if you know that you need to diversify your income, step number one is just to get educated. And once you start to get educated, those fears are going to start to kind of go away. Like, I mean, the first time I ever flew, I was a nervous wreck, but people kept telling me like, hey, the odds of a successful flight are greater than driving in a car. And it's like, the more that you kind of get educated and you know your statistics, the more you can live with taking the risk that needs to be taken.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's definitely, but you brought up a good point, and financing is now hasn't really been an issue. Just like the housing, the financing was very much there. People wanted the money, they could get the money. If they had some credit issues, we could find you a mortgage company that would buy that deal. Now things are going to start getting a little tighter. So when someone's looking at a rental or property to flip or to turn into rental, is that going to be an issue? Is that being an issue right now?
Yeah, it's the same. Like, my answer is almost going to be the same answer as, being afraid of tenants. And it all comes down to education. What we're likely going to start seeing more of, especially in the commercial market, but also in the residential, are things like seller financing. And so if whatever reason values aren't there, but the properties can carry, the rents and the mortgage, you may have some people that are willing to kind of like walk away from their property, but they're willing to kind of hand the keys over to somebody else so that it doesn't go into foreclosure. Or you might start to see people, whose properties aren't selling, they want to get top dollar, but they're willing to carry back $100,000 or a $200,000 note. So all of this stuff, like, no matter what kind of fear we have, or what, even if it's a reality, if the fear is a reality, there's always a way to profit by getting educated on the subject. And that's where you want to be around people who are educating and know what they're doing, because the strategies do change. It's not, real estate is a dynamic market where what worked, especially, this is the best time I could ever say this statement, but what worked 6 months ago doesn't necessarily going to be the thing that works now. So you have to be around other people who are doing it to get the best strategies. And again, that's not just real estate, that's any business, any market, but you want to get around other people that are trying new strategies, testing them, and then sharing what's working in today's economic climate.
So you're going to have people that are part of your agent investing group that might have information on some kind of creative financing, whether it's in good times or bad times. So you never have to really lose a deal because of the financing.
So, I mean, what I think that, I do the best job at, and I'm not perfect at it, but what I try to do the best job at in my life is surround myself with other people who are successful and talk to them and ask them what's working and what's not working. in those simple two questions, you'd be surprised like how much information people are willing to share. And that helps shape the actions that we take. Because as entrepreneurs, if you own your own business, the only thing that you can really control is how you spend your time. And if you're spending your time with the right strategies, you're going to get massively good, financial results. If you're kind of doing things that used to work a year ago that don't work today, you could go the completely opposite direction. And those two people could be working the same amount of hours, but they're focusing on different strategies. So again, I think like, the saying proximity is power. You want to get around as much as you can other people who are doing what you want to do. And we're, as humans, we copy each other, right? Like, I have 4 kids, and I have 3 young boys, and they're always, the younger one's always copying the older one. That's how we learn. So you want to get around people who are living the life and doing the things that you want to do, and kind of by default you're going to start getting the things that you want.
Okay, well, that's all positive, I think. The
It could be negative if you get around five people who are telling you that you can't do things. And
well, yeah, and you have a CPA background, correct?
yeah, yes,
Yeah, so I mean, you can understand a lot of those things as well. But I remember when I was a young kid, probably about 20 years old, and I was looking at some real estate, and there were all these people talking about, well, you can buy it with nothing down. You don't have to put any money down. And I'm saying, I'm asking around. I'm asking real estate brokers. I'm asking mortgage companies, and no, that's not true. You can't do that. You can't do that. But in reality, if you know how to be creative, you can do that. And there are people that do that.
And when I first started my business, I'll never forget this. So I grew up in Revere, and most of my, friends' parents never had any financial success. My parents never had any financial success. And I remember when I first started my business, all of my friends would tell me, like, why are you doing this? Like, you have a CPA background, you can get a good job. Like, you're not gonna be able to be successful owning your own business. And they weren't trying to be mean. And that's the part that's kind of like ironic about it. They thought that they were helping me. So sometimes, the people that you hang out with, they think that they're helping you, but they're actually holding you back. And at the time when they were saying those things, part of me, believed them. But now looking back, it's like, it's just kind of like a funny thing, because a lot of people have limiting beliefs. And I'm certainly not somebody who says, hey, if you believe you can jump out of a 10-story building and fly, then you can. But I also believe that, like, if you see other people doing it, it can be doable. And there's a thing where nobody ever ran the 4-minute mile. Like, it was thought to be an impossible thing, and then once one person ran it, it became like something that everybody could do. And again, with whatever you kind of want out of life, and we're focused right now on wealth and investing and stuff like that, but that goes to anything that you want out of life. Like, get around other people that are doing it. You're not going to want to be the 5th person out of your friends that can't do something. You will adapt. That's the crazy part about being a human.
Well, everything is education.
Yeah.
I mean, you can listen to 20 million different people and get 20 million different opinions and ideas from them. You have to be able to sort that out and have your own mind and know what direction you want to go in. And you have to listen and learn and take all of that into consideration when you're planning to go forward in your life. And that's, I always told my son that, and he's become very successful because of that, where he can listen to people that say, no, you'll never be good at that, it's never going to be a successful industry to be in, or you got to do this, you got to do that. I said, no, you do what you think you can do to make yourself successful. You look at a clear path, take everyone's ideas and listen, and then you make your decisions. And
yeah, and that's why, like, what you're saying, like, we never like achieve success fully on our own. there's always somebody in our corner that's encouraging us. I mean, for me, it was my parents and other people. I talked about some friends that didn't encourage me, but I had enough people that were encouraging me, enough people that did help me, along the way. And it's just, I think it's about hoping to get around the people that can help you improve your life as much as you possibly can. And usually that tends to lead you in the right direction.
That's right. And I tell a story about when I was a kid. I was looking at rental property, multifamily properties, and I had this deal in Boston on Com Ave.
Com
And,
Ave. I was there last night for my son's hockey game. I went to see BU play.
well, not well, a little further down towards Chestnut Hill, near Cleveland Circle, but on the
Yep.
corner of Cleveland, just Commonwealth Ave and Chestnut Hill Ave. There was a brick building or a cement building or whatever it's made of, and it was an old timer, and we had rent control at the time. He
Hmm.
was tired of it. He said, "I'll sell you the building for $78,000, and you just take over. Yeah, I'll finance it." He told me, "I'll finance the whole thing. You just take over the property." He didn't want to deal with the rent control anymore and all. So I went home and I told my father, and my father said, "What do you want to be a landlord for?"
Yep. Yeah.
Especially, all this nightmares about the rent control and all that. That building sold probably about 10 years ago or maybe 8 years ago for like $20 million.
And you're really making my point where it's like, especially like everybody comes across these opportunities in their life. Like there's anybody that you talk to has had an opportunity to buy a piece of real estate and make some money from it. But especially with agents, they come across these opportunities. Like you might have, because you weren't an agent, you might have a few stories. Real estate agents come across these opportunities like multiple times a year. And again, it's like, nobody ever regrets buying a piece of real estate over the long haul. They only regret selling or not buying. And that's really easy to say. And one thing, about investing that I always talk about is like the fact that it's not a linear curve to success, it's exponential. So like with that property that you're talking about, that's a perfect example of like, where your dad was thinking is like, a year from now, it's not really going to still be that great of a thing. 2 years from now, you're probably still going to regret buying it. But then all of a sudden, you're like flatline, and then, oh, it's worth $20 million. And that's very common with real estate investing. And it's why a lot of people, they don't get into it the way that they should, is because I would love to sit here and say, hey, learn from me, become an investor, and in 2 years, you're going to be worth $10 million. It's more like a 10 to 15-year plan. And I don't mean to be demotivational about this, but it's almost like a guarantee if you wait 10 or 15 years. But that's the part you have to make sure that you're in it for the long haul. And almost without doubt, you're gonna have some big success. But again, all comes down to like educating on how you can do these things.
Well, I think we figured that out. It's education, right, Tom?
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Tom. A lot of great information, and congratulations on your success in the past 10 years. Sounds like
We're
you did a good job.
I mean, me and my partners, we're, working hard every single day. We're trying to improve our lives, improve our families' lives, and improve the lives of the people that are around us and that we're trying to help. And if we can achieve those objectives, I'll be, very happy. And hopefully we don't have to wait 10 more years to get on another call. But if it is 10 years later, I hope that, we can have an even bigger conversation about like all of the people that we've helped, not necessarily just me, but other people that we've kind of helped along the way.
Well, maybe in a couple of years, if I'm not retired finally, you can bring on a couple of your success stories with other agents.
That would be cool. Yeah, we already have some of those, but I would like to multiply that number by a good amount.
I'm sure you will, though.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking with Tom Cafarella of Cameron Real Estate Group, and it was 10 years ago, around this time, I think, that we talked to Tom before his business really exploded, and you know, I wish you lots of continued success, Tom. What you're doing is doing right. So, and you're helping a lot of people. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And again, guys, agentinvestor.com. Check it out. It's completely free.
Well, thank you, Tom. And I think this deal is done.
All
Good
right.
day.
Thank you, guys.